Hey everybody, thanks for joining me today for lesson 4 in chapter 7. Today we'll be talking about proportions, and you want to be able to write and solve proportions by the end of this video. So let's start by defining a proportion. A proportion is an equation that shows two equivalent ratios. For example, we could say that 3/6 is equal to 1/2. That's an example of a proportion. Just saying that an equation that shows two ratios are equivalent. All right, and we're going to start by looking at a model here, and hopefully that'll show you and give you a little bit better understanding of one way these can work. So it says write a proportion for the model. First, write the ratio of hearts to stars. We're talking about hearts and stars here. So if I were to write a ratio of these, I would say for every 1, 2, 3, 4 hearts, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 stars. So a ratio would be 4 to 8 of hearts to stars. If I wanted to write an equivalent ratio to that, or a proportion, here's one way. I could separate the hearts and the stars into two equal groups. So if I split my hearts in half, I'd have 2 hearts here, and I've had 2 hearts over here. And if I were to split my stars in half, I'd have 4 here and 4 here. Here's our 2 equal groups. Now, write the ratio of hearts to stars in each group. So the number of hearts I have in this group is 2, and the number of stars is 4. It's the same here, 2 to 4. A proportion shown by the model is, well, the first I had 4 to 8, and I can show that that's equal to 2 to 4. Some of you might be looking at this and saying, well, yeah, that's 4 is half of 8 and 2 is half of 4. So if you were to divide these, you would get a half or 0.5, or they simplify to the same thing. And that's one way of thinking about this. Okay. The other way I could represent this is, I always go back to pizza. So I have a piece of pizza cut into 8 slices, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and I eat 4 of those, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the same as if I have another pizza cut into 4 whole slices and I ate 2 of them. This chunk and this chunk are the same size. So proportion is saying that 2 ratios are equal. Let's flip to the next page and look at another way in which we can test for if 2 ratios are proportionate. And in this case, we're actually going to look and see from there how to find a missing value. And this property that we're going to learn about is called the cross products property. Cross products. Remember, the product is the answer to a multiplication problem. So think multiply when you hear cross products. Okay, so you'll see here they took arrows and they went diagonal, and we're going to multiply them. Cross multiply essentially is cross products property. So they took 6 times n and set that equal to 5 times 18. Because if you have one ratio equal to another ratio, or a proportion, the cross products are equal. Let's look at the example that we just did before. We had 4/8 equal to 2/4. 8 times 2 is 16, and that equals 4 times 4, which is 16. So that's just another way of showing what we did in the last problem here for the cross products, because cross products are equal. When I multiply, 6 times n is 6n equals 5 times 18 would be 90. And then it's a simple equation. 6 times what number is 90? In other words, I need to divide both sides by 6 to undo the multiplication. So 6 divided by 6 is 1n, and 90 divided by 6 would give me 15. So let's double check that. What that's saying is 5/6 is equal to 15/18. Remember, one other way we can check these is saying, am I multiplying by the same on top and bottom of my proportion? Well, 5 times 3 is 15, and 6 times 3 is 18. So yes, that's a true statement. All right, let's scroll down here and look at the last example. It says, according to the label, 1 teaspoon of plant fertilizer should be used per 6 gallons of water. How many tablespoons of fertilizer would you use for 4 gallons of water? Okay, so let's set up a proportion. 1 teaspoon per 6 gallons. But what we want to know is how many tablespoons if we only are going to use 4 gallons of water. So 1 to 6 is equal to something over 4. And here, F is going to be the amount of fertilizer for 4 gallons of water. Yeah. So we are going to write a proportion, which we did here. Here's our proportion. And then we're going to use the cross products property. You can see they're cross multiplying here because cross products are equal. So when I do that, 6 times F is 6F, and 1 times 4 is 4. So then I need to 6 times what number is 4? Well, it's going to be something less than 1. So divide both sides by 6 to undo the multiplication. So divide by 6 here, it gives me 1F. Divide by 6 here gives me 4/6. 4 divided by 6 is just 4/6. Or if you want to think about it another way, you can put your answer in simplest form. So divide top and bottom by 2, because they're both even numbers. 4 divided by 2 would be 2, and 6 divided by 2 would be 3. So you would use 2/3 tablespoon of fertilizer for 4 gallons of water. And that makes sense. If we had 1 tablespoon for 6 gallons and we're decreasing our number of gallons of water, our tablespoon should also decrease. So we should be looking for a number smaller than 1. And that's what we came up with. 2/3 isn't quite 1. So that's essentially what you'll be doing today, is using cross products and some of the other methods that you've been using to see if ratios are equivalent when solving proportions. All right, please pause the video now to try 1, 2, and 3 for the check it out section. Alrighty, hopefully you arrived at these answers. For the first one, write a proportion for the model. Okay, there are 2 smiley faces for every 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 moons. That should be equal to, all right, like before, I'm going to make 2 equal groups. So I'm going to split this in half, and split these in half. So I would have 1 smiley and 3 moons, and I would have 2 groups of those. So 1 smiley and 3 moons, and 1 smiley and 3 moons. So 1 smiley face to every 3 moons. And that makes sense. If I were to cross multiply, 2 times 3 is 6, and 6 times 1 is 6. So that works. Number 2, I'll again use my cross products property. So 5 times n is 5n equals 3 times 15 would be 45. So 5 times what number is 45? Or divide both sides by 5 to undo the multiplying. So n would equal 9. And lastly, for number 3, to make a certain shade of pink paint, mix 8 gallons of white paint with 3 gallons of red paint. How many gallons of white paint would you need for 15 gallons of red paint? Okay, so you can see how I did that. I used my ratio 8 to 3 and set that equivalent to what I know the ratio should be for when I make 15 gallons of red. So again, you can do this either a bunch of different ways. I am going to look at it and say, okay, to get from 3 to 15, I multiply by 5. And to keep this ratio equivalent, or this proportion equivalent, I need to multiply by 5 on top and bottom. So 8 times 5 would give me 40. So 40 gallons of white paint. All right. There you have it. That does it for lesson number 4 on proportions. Let me know if you have any questions. I will see you guys next time.